Hi everyone, it's Alison here, and I am back with my sixth and final installation of my 6 Leading Design Principles posts. And I thought instead of showing you a whole lot of new layouts that demonstrate the concept of unity and harmony, I would actually go through all the layouts that we've already talked about and refresh your memory as to what we talked about them, why I showed them to you initially, and then we can talk about them as it relates to unity and harmony. Okay, so we started off talking about balance, and there were 3 different ways of achieving balance, different styles of balance. And this was the first example I gave of symmetrical balance. So on a double page spread like this, it's easy to see that one page is sort of mirrored on the other side. So if you think of having a mirror down the middle, what you do on one side is reflected on the other. Now obviously there are subtle differences because instead of more writing on this side, we've got the title, but it is balanced by the writing on this side. So when we're talking about unity and harmony, we're talking about all the things, all the decisions that have gone onto this page that tie everything together. So when I look at this, my first thought about what is bringing it all together is repeated elements. So these embellishment clusters are all the same. And I've got them in groups. I've got 4 of them. They're all the same. So that creates unity and harmony on the page. If they had been all different, it would probably be a bit more jarring to your eye, but because they're the same, you look at them once, you see, okay, I can identify the elements in there, and now I don't have to think about the other ones. I know that they're the same, and so your eye sort of brings everything together. I've also got repeated elements in the globes, and then these cameras. So that helps circle the eye around. Obviously the colors go across the page from either side, but the main thing that is uniting them, that is really bringing it all together, creating that unity, is those repeated elements. So let's look at the next one. So we're still talking about symmetrical balance. This is a page that is a sort of central design that is symmetrical. So if you have your mirror playing down the middle, it's the same on both sides. But there are items that create unity. So the black enamel dots have been repeated, as well as other accents of black. So you've got this black piece up here, and then it's mirrored with a black die cut down here. Your papers cover both sides, so that brings it all together. And then the colors in this background paper are also repeated in the title lettering. So that all helps create unity. We've also got that black die cut in the middle there. And these 3 black die cuts, they are in a line, and that helps emphasize the symmetrical aspect of this layout. Another symmetrical layout. This time the mirror plane is horizontal across the center there. There's also symmetry this way as well, but I think the main symmetry is on the horizontal. This one is pretty easy to see the types of things that are repeated to create unity. You've got the same patterns kitty corner to each other, and in the middle we've got the red glitter alphabets, and we've also got some red stickles that I've dotted around to sort of spread out that element. We've got the same stickers, and then the word strips as well help create that unity. Oh, and washi tape. So now we're talking about asymmetrical balance. We've lost the central mirror plane, so to speak, but we are still concerned with making sure the layout is balanced visually. we may not have the exact same items on either side of the mirror plane, whatever you want to call it, but the items that we do put there have the same weight, so that one side is not imbalanced, not heavier than the other. So here, to create unity, I've repeated the ink splatters. I've repeated this glittery sticker. I've added the asterisk marks from it, dotted those around. We've got heart shapes repeated. Both sides have flare badges. All these things help tie everything together. And the biggest thing actually that ties this together is the frame of the paper. And you'll see that in a lot of my layouts. I really like that look. Either cardstock frame with a pattern paper center, or in this case, pattern paper frame with a cardstock center, or something that reads as a solid in the center. This next one is also asymmetrical balance. So our line of symmetry is across the middle. What I did on the top half, I haven't repeated exactly on the bottom half, but they are of approximately equal weights. I have repeated certain elements to create that unity. I've got the same buttons, I've got the sticky brads, I've got the same colors in the papers, I've got these little square shapes, I've got the same strip of pattern paper up there, I've got enamel dots and stars, so that all helps it tie together. Perhaps similar to our first one, double page spreads, it's really easy to sort of find the plane of symmetry if you just think of the divide between the two pages. But this time we have asymmetrical balance. I haven't exactly repeated the elements on one side to the other, but I have spread it across. So this piece of paper and the black border behind cross that center line, and this one goes all the way across, and this one as well. I've repeated the flower shapes from one side to the other, the hearts, the spots of gold repeat. I've got wood veneer on both sides. So that's how we are making each side balance and connect. One last asymmetrical layout. And this one has kind of got a diagonal line of symmetry, and that is created by all these elements that run diagonally across the page, ironically enough. But each side of that plane has similar items. So the paint splatter unites the two. I've got butterflies all down that line of symmetry. So these are the things that help bring everything together. Enamel dots again. We've got like the sort of wood grain, newsprint, the gold. All these things work together to create this harmonious page. And here again, I've got the frame of the pattern paper behind my cardstock. So the next one is when we move on to radial balance. And radial balance is when you don't have a plane of symmetry, you sort of have a spot of symmetry, and everything radiates out. Now in this case, my radial balance is mostly contained to this side where you have the sunburst, and that's the easiest instance, example, what have you, of radial balance. It can be a fairly popular motif in scrapbooking, the sunburst. But for the case of unity and harmony, I had to make sure that this part links to the other side of the page. It doesn't become a separate entity, so to speak. So the pattern paper goes across. It's behind the sunburst. These, this is liquid pearls. Those show up on the other side as well. So that just helps bring everything together. And again, here you've got the frame. This time it's the cardstock frame with the pattern paper background. The next one is a little bit more sort of free-flowing. if you think of the photos as being sort of central spoke, and then everything radiates around. It's not a perfect circle for sure. If you can have an asymmetrical radial balance, this is kind of, I think, what that would be. But I've repeated the same shapes. I've got brads everywhere, the little flowers, the colors, so it still all reads as one image. And then the last one, this is something I did for my one little word, and it's pretty easy to see where this radial balance starts from, and it starts from this central doily, and that's where you have that's my one little word for 2015, and then everything radiates out from there. Okay, so next we're going to talk about rhythm and repetition. So with rhythm, we talked about I think 3 different ways of achieving rhythm. The first one being repetition, and the first couple of images I showed you were actually cards. Now these are cards that I have given away, so I no longer have them. Well, one was a Father's Day card, but I'm not sure if my husband kept it or not, to be honest. But the next one was this scrapbooking layout. And here we're talking about very, very simple ways to achieve repetition on your scrapbook layouts. And that's, 3 images in a row, and underneath it's sort of 3 boxes. This one opens to contain the journaling, but that has nothing to do with our repetition. So unity. We've got it's quite busy down below with the red and the snowflakes and the silver trim and all the rest of it. But I have continued these motifs up above. So we've got the silvery gray paper, it's got snowflakes on it. We've got this snowflake charm that's hanging from a little word banner. That color is then repeated down below. I've got the owl sticker. So that's how we have achieved unity in this one. As well, we've got the frame again. That's like the easiest, simplest way to achieve unity, is to frame it up. So next we've got repetition of shape, and in this case it's the buttons, well, the round shapes, because we've got buttons and we've got brads and we've got little dots of red stickle. Later we talked about scale, and we're working with that here. All the different principles work together when you're talking about unity and harmony, so you can't really talk about one without talking about the other. So we're repeating shapes, but we've got scale going. We've got the different sizes of that repeated shape. The other thing that creates unity on this one is I've repeated the patterns. So I've got these pattern strips on this side, and they're repeated over here, and they're even repeated up here in this little embellishment cluster. And then we start talking about alternation, which happens a little bit in this one as well, the big to the small. It helps move your eye, but I have a better example for you underneath here. So here we are really playing with the sizes of the circles. It's scale, but for this example, it's alternation of size to create repetition. So we've got all different sizes of circles. This was a cut file. So all these circles were cut out, and then I filled some in with basketballs, some with photos. I wanted to emphasize the photo of my daughter, so I made that one rectangular, and I matted it, and I even popped it up. So you can see how all the different principles, they all work together. I mean, that's emphasis right there. It's different. It's a different shape. It's popped up. And here we're talking about repetition. We're also playing with scale. But again, all the elements are repeated around the page. I've got the wooden buttons that are repeated, and the wood veneer, and the colors. And hope you can see where I'm going here. This one is alternation of size again. Most of these photos, in fact, I think all the photos are the same size, but I've interspersed them with spaces with like an added stamping, so that actually sort of increases the size of that, especially with the sticker underneath. I've got larger blocks of the title block, the journaling block. Down below we've got the bigger camera. Adding the sticker and things here makes this photo look even larger. Again, over here with the little bits and pieces that I've added. But everything is harmonious because, again, those photos are all the same size, and I've repeated elements. So I've got these hearts dotted around. The puffy stickers are dotted around everywhere. The numbers, even though they're all different colors, they all came from the same sticker sheet. So those help create unity on this page. And again, I've got a frame. It's a really, really narrow frame this time, but I have that frame around the whole layout. We've got alternation in size of brads here. And up here, alternation in the banner pieces. So I've got these bronze glitter stickers are reflected and repeated in the bronze stickles and this bronze glitter trim. And now we get on to progression. And again, I had a couple of cards, but I gave those away, so I don't have them anymore. This was the one layout that I had that shows progression. And in this one, we are talking, it's kind of a stepped pattern, and a staircase is a great way to think of progression. You're going up or down, depending on your way of thinking. One of the cards that I showed had basically an ombre, so it was a progression of from white to red and all through the different colors there. This one we're progressing. We've got this large block of vellum down to a small block of vellum, but I'm repeating these square elements. The photos stay the same size, but they progress as I go down the page. I've repeated these hexagonal stickers and round elements as well. And these little sort of dahlia type epoxy flowers, those repeat. Now for this one, I mean, it's not that it's ununified without the drawn border, but that really does help bring it all together. If you think about it without the border, it might feel like the photos want to sort of fly off the page, but drawing that border on contains them all, unifies it, and helps to create that harmony. Okay, so next we talked about emphasis, and I talked about different ways of creating a focal point, making sure that people knew exactly what it was that you wanted them to look at. So the first way was with multiple photos to make one of them bigger. So here we've got the one large photo, the two small photos. These are sort of supporting, they give background details, but the main photo is the one that I wanted everyone to look at. So here, to create unity, everything is matted on this smaller piece of pattern paper. Keeps it contained. That's one thing I didn't talk about actually with the other layouts, was that if you keep all your elements sort of touching one another, that helps to create that sense of that they're all, you know, it's all one unit. So here we've got two other pieces of pattern paper that overlap, and all the photos are on top of them, so that keeps everything contained. Other things that we've touched on before, so I repeated elements. So we've got the washi tape. We've got these are all chipboard shapes from the same package, and I've noticed that apparently they're not as sticky as advertised. I've also repeated the dark pink. So those all help to create a unified design. Another one with a larger focal photo. The smaller ones here are actually behind a photo transfer. But it's really the big one that I want people to look at. Other things that create the unity that we've already talked about here, we've got the frame around the photo. I've repeated the shapes, so that we've got the speech bubbles here that I fussy cut out of some pattern paper, and I've repeated speech bubbles up here. We've got this shape is repeated. We've got two camera motifs. We've got brads and we've got these word stickers that are repeated. We've got the same washi tape as well. Next, I talked about making your photo big. So this is great for a single photo layout, printed at a slightly bigger size. So this is a 5x7. I've got other layouts that have much larger photos, you know, 8x10, or the panorama photos are really great for this. But in this case, I've got the one 5x7. I've actually given it a double matte, which helps emphasize it even more. And then all my embellishments, and there's lots of different colors, although the colors and patterns do repeat across the page, but all the embellishments are sort of centered on this one photo, keeps it all together, keeps your focus here. Here again, I've got one photo. I think it's actually even smaller than a 4x6. I think this might be 3.5 by 5. But what I've done here to emphasize it is having all these other layers underneath it. So there's lots and lots of different layers. I've got label stickers tucked in, lots of different pieces from an ephemera kit. From a pack, I mean. This is one entire piece, and that was kind of the jumping off point. This came from an ephemera pack, and it's already layered together with the stitching and everything. So I wanted to emphasize that really layered look behind my photo by adding in lots of different pieces. Again, we've got repeated elements with the butterflies, the gold enamel dots, colors repeat, all that kind of stuff. And then next I talked about going black and white. So I don't have multiple photos on this page, so it's fairly easy to know exactly where you want your viewer to look. However, there's a lot of color going on. So having the photo in black and white helps emphasize it even more. If this had been a color photo, it would probably have gotten lost in amongst all this other color. So changing that photo to black and white helps you know exactly what's important. Other things that are creating unity, because that's what we're talking about. Again, the papers repeat. I've got the same pattern up there as I do here. The gold repeats. There's touches of gold on the numbers here and in this sticker. And then I've got a gold heart underneath there. I've got the same enamel dots. I've got this, and I'm not sure if you can see it, but there's washi tape behind here that shows up here as well. So my next example with black and white photo is a double page spread, so I'll just get that set up. And this is a bit of a unique layout in that it is very monochromatic. Now this was done for a challenge where we were only allowed to use one color. We got to pick whatever color we wanted to use, but everything had to be that one color. I couldn't even add in white accents. So even my background paper, it did have white polka dots, and I rubbed a gray ink pad over it to make them gray. So here, the emphasis was this one black and white photo. The other three have color in them, but this one, it's larger and it's black and white, and there's multiple people in it. So all those three things help bring your eye right to this. Other things that create unity. Obviously, everything's great. So that it tells you it's one design that helps bring everything together. But even so, I've repeated different elements. We've got the bows, these little rosettes made with tulle ribbon, the doilies, the chipboard flowers, the buttons, everything that I've done, you know, over here, I've done over here. And they are placed around the photos, so you know, it's sort of, it's as if you're sort of gently corralling everything into the center here so that you're looking at the photo of my girls. The last way I talked about how to create emphasis is to use your embellishments to frame the parts of the layout that are important. So we talked about a visual triangle, and I gave you examples of how to create those. Here it's very obvious where my visual triangle is. I've got these 3 identical embellishments, and they frame the photos, which makes the photos the important part. This layout was done as an example for a store, so it doesn't have any journaling on it. I might like to come back and change that eventually, but for now it's just a really good example of the sort of visual triangle with embellishments. This next one is the one that was that I used with my sketch, and I manipulated in my sketch where I would put the butterflies if I wanted to emphasize different things. Right now I'm putting more emphasis on the journaling than the photos, just because the butterflies actually, the main triangle, if you draw a triangle like this, it takes in some of the photos, but it really is around the journaling, and that's what I wanted. But again, we've got unity. We've got the same paper that's repeated. The butterflies obviously are repeated. These gems are repeated, and the colors are repeated. So emphasis doesn't necessarily have to be about the photos. I mean, the photos are great and they help tell the story, but here I'm really emphasizing the journaling, because I've pulled out words from the journaling for the title. The layout is still unified, however, and that is because, again, I've repeated washi tape, papers, the colors, all those sort of things. And another way to emphasize the journaling is to write lots and lots. The photos, again, are here as a support for the story. This layout is really about the story. And while this is large and you would think that that would be the title, it's not. The title is actually here. It says too close. And then the explanation for that comes from the journaling. But again, we have repeated elements to keep things unified. We framed it. We've got the washi tape. And if you'll notice where my embellishments are placed, where my washi tape is placed, basically. We've got 1 point there, 1 point there, 1 point there. Now, what is inside that triangle? It's not the photos, it's the journaling. And that's what makes it, that's what emphasizes it. And here it was about cutting up words to make that the emphasis. I have lots of photos of my kids playing soccer. So this is kind of a fun way to switch things up a little bit. By adding all these different words, it emphasizes something else rather than the fact that they're playing soccer. It's, you know, what they're learning. Again, though, we have repeated elements. We've got this green chevron paper. It's cut into circles, and it shows up multiple times. Of course, all these words are from the same sheet, so that unifies the design as well. We've got the black and white papers on both sides, and the hot pink behind. And then if we want to emphasize something, you know, we just kind of, what I call, force the issue. And here we've got this sunburst design, so everything, your eye is automatically going to go into this corner. So I placed the photo there, and I've got multiple arrows pointing in at the photo. The unity comes from all of the color. It's all in the yellow family. We've got the multiple stamping of, you know, the same design on both sides. Again, I've used a design that forces your eye into certain, to look in a certain spot. So I've got these two bands of pink paper running across here and down here. and that your eye will naturally follow those, and you go to this beautiful picture of my middle daughter. And then as an additional focus, we've got this shot of blue, and then this one photo that's tilted, and that helps bring your eye to that photo as well. But the tones, even in the photo and the papers, are very soft. We've got the repeated colors, like even in what she's wearing. She's got the pink shorts on, and I picked that up in the pink paper. The beach and the water was very gray. That's been picked up in the gray paper. So all these things help unify the design. So even though this is a shot of bright blue, it's not jarring. It doesn't feel disconnected because, again, it's a circle. It's been framed by these buttons, and it helps bring it all together. So with proportion, I was really talking about the rule of thirds, and I had that sort of tic-tac-toe grid set up, and I talked about different ways to use that grid to help know where to put your photos. So in this, we're talking about photos on the 1/3 line. So these two photos are sort of centered on that first tic-tac-toe line. If you think of dividing your 12 by 12 into 9 squares, this line is right through the middle of these photos. So I've got this band of photos. What keeps it from feeling very separate from the journaling is that I have the same embellishments again. And again, I've used the exact same embellishments. The only difference is that underneath this one, the burlap is cut into a pennant shape, whereas underneath these ones, it's just a simple rectangle. But that helps unify this design, as well as, again, we have a frame. Now these are also on the 1/3 line, but I've emphasized it, and it's a vertical line. I've emphasized it with this twine. I've got this band of dark pink wrapped in the twine, and it's like my photos are sort of stuck in there, as if they've been stuck into a bulletin board or something like that. We're talking unity. We've got this similar sort of embellishments around the photos again. We've framed with this brightly colored paper. And we've got the white ink spots that help bring it all together. So now we're sort of dealing with that 2/3 space. So if you think of this layout as being, this top bit is 1/3, and then this is the 2/3. My photos are really in that 2/3 space, and my title, my journaling, and then I've added extra embellishments. It's all in that lower spot. So that upper spot is left to breathe, if you will. But again, we've repeated design concepts and colors. So we've got something that sort of mimics the sun, and we've got sort of sun stickers down there, and scalloped shapes as well. We've repeated the colors and patterns, so that all helps unify everything. We've got the photo mat on the blue as well. It brings that blue down here. And this is another one where the photos are in that 2/3 space. Here we've got the blue is continuous to the design, as well as the red. We've got the red up here. I've got white stars that flow from place to place. These are from the same set. Okay, and the next one I have is a double page spread, so let's get that set up. So now we have photos in the middle 2/3, if you can wrap your head around that concept. So here, we're looking at repeated designs above and below the photo. This word strip repeats there. The papers repeat. We've used the same washi tape here and here and here. The green repeats. This repeats. So that helps it all come together, even though we've got a bigger canvas because we have a double page spread now. We've got similar sort of floral accents and photo corners too. Those help unify everything. Okay, so the next and our last concept is about scale. And I was really talking about pattern scale because that was sort of the easiest concept I think for scrapbookers to understand, or the easiest way to understand scale for a scrapbooker is to think of pattern scale. And so here we've got a sort of a medium to large scale pattern as a background, and it's quite bold, but I don't think it overtakes the photos, and that's because we've used bold colors as well, and we framed it in that red. Again, we're talking unity, so we've repeated elements. We've got the red twine, we've got the wood veneer. Now we've got a large scale pattern as our background, and quite a bit of it has been covered up, and that sort of helps. It helps from keeping the pattern overwhelming the page, I guess you could say, because I've covered so much of it up. Unity-wise, we've got the twine in 3 different places. Colors, obviously, this wood grain goes right across. The green repeats. And this one we're dealing only with small scale patterns. We've got a small floral and a small polka dot-ish kind of stripy pattern, if you want to call it that. And then there's a strip of wood grain, which on a large scale would be more like a medium sized pattern, but because it's just a small strip, it reads almost as a solid, really. We've got some washi tape here. We've repeated the blue. Again, we're using small scale patterns, and here we've got them in blocks. So we've got 4 different blocks of pattern. This one has a slightly larger scale, but because it is tone on tone and very pale, you don't notice that the houses in that pattern are of quite a bigger scale than, say, the hearts, for example. But I have repeated the patterns to create harmony. So we've got the blue repeated, the butterflies repeat the yellow, and we've got green repeated throughout. And now we're mixing the different scales on one layout. So this stripe is kind of a small scale pattern in that it's a narrow stripe. It's bold, but bold doesn't necessarily correlate to large. So color makes it bold. Then we've got another small scale pattern back here with the polka dots. And then around the journaling card is another small scale pattern. And then we've got some medium scale pattern with this polka dot. And then this is, you know, sort of medium to large, but because it's white on craft, so it's very neutral, you're not really registering it as a large pattern per se. So our repeated motifs bring everything together. We've got the flowers in each embellishment cluster, as well as a paper clip and some of these little brad stickers and enamel dots. That all helps to unify it. Even though there's lots of different patterns with different scales, it all comes together through the embellishment. Another example with multiple scales. So my large scale pattern was one that I created myself just by stamping on some cardstock and then adding the mist. And then behind that is this brick pattern, which it kind of reads as a solid, so I would be tempted to call that a small scale pattern, just because your eye doesn't pick out a great deal of variety in it. so it can kind of ignore it. And then behind that, the telephone, again, it's a bold pattern because it's so colorful, but it is a medium scale compared to the doily pattern in this. Down below, we've got a mixture of small and medium scale patterns and embellishments. So because we are mixing all the different scales together, and apart from this doily, a lot of it is quite small, I can add larger embellishments like this large telephone, and then have this large heart and the large circles that makes it more interesting. Repeating the motifs, the telephone, the stars, the colors, the black and the red, the colors too with the cork. It's not cork up here, but it's cork colored, so that all helps. You know, and obviously the big expanse of craft back there too. That helps unify it all. Okay, the last two examples are actually the homework that I had assigned to you guys. Now I have done 2 of my homework layouts. I still have yet to do my large scale pattern, but I'll start with my small scale pattern. We'll talk about it and what unifies it. So it's a very busy pattern and it's a very busy layout, but it reflects a party, and parties are busy and there's lots of action and giggling, especially when you have a lot of girls, and they're making funny faces. So I really wanted something fun with lots of energy. So the colors reflect that, and then all the different layers on top reflect that as well. I've played with scale. I've got this small scale pattern in the background that I have covered with a tone on tone. It's a map, so it's sort of in that medium scale range, but just like the brick pattern of the example before, your eye can read it more as a solid, so it can kind of disregard it. And then I've played up with a large scale ruler and then the large flowers. I've added hits of yellow to unify it. I've pulled out this turquoise in some of the other accents from that same sorry, it's Friday and my brain's not working anymore. Some of the accents from that sticker sheet, pulled those into the embellishment clusters as well as these gems. The gems, again, I've used oversized gems and as well as the smaller ones to really play with the scale. And then this is my medium size, medium scale patterned homework. That's this background, this big polka dot. I have used a lot of smaller scale pieces underneath it and repeated them again. So I've got this small scale blue camera, and I punched a small circle of it and tucked it in up there. We've got the green circles here that repeat. The globes repeat. The motifs repeat as well. I've got globes all over the place. And then I added these purple sequins to bring out the purple from this one particular piece of pattern paper. So I hope that gives you guys a good grounding in the design principles and how they work together. You can't really isolate one principle without it touching on the others. You can talk about balance, but you have to, at the same time, talk about unity and repetition and all these other things that go along with it. So thank you very much for playing along with this. I will do my large scale homework, I promise. It's sitting on my desk taunting me at the moment. And once I post that, then this little lesson session will be done, and I hope you have enjoyed it and learned something. Feel free to leave something love for me in the comments. I'd love to hear your ideas and thoughts on everything that we've talked about, and share some of your layouts so that we can all see how you've interpreted the different design principles to create a unified layout. All right, thanks again, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.